So in this session, what we'll do is go through the saving of a test for a Fluke 1670 series multifunction tester. One of the critical things that you need to be aware of, that when we create a project, we create a certain level of structure. Then what we'll do is look at that project and see what the allowable test results are. If you can't get an allowable test results, the unit will create an error and it will reject the reading. And that's what we'll cover in a little bit later on. But let me just go through a predefined project. So we're in the project menu, which is straight from the menu structure. We then cursor down to the projects, and we can define a project. In this case, it's referred to as HQ. We just click into that. And now you can then see the details of how that project has been established. Now, it's always a good technique to firstly look at this to make sure what you are required to do and what you want to do is captured within this table, and also that if you do a test that isn't in this table, be aware that an error will occur. So what we do is then just go across the various points, establishing exactly what can be done. And in this case, at the distribution board level, it will take a voltage, it will take a continuity, insulation resistance, polarity, loop impedance, RCD trip. So they're all ones that are defined because that's the way you've defined it within the circuit. Now, good practice is to now have a structure which includes a distribution board, a circuit, and a test point. So if you just click into the circuit icon, that will give us another level of circuits that have been defined. And again, circuits will have their own definitions: voltage, continuity, insulation resistance, and so on. Now, as I said, the best practice is to actually go down to test point, and we defined all the test points that are available. And in this case, we've defined two test points, GPO1, GPO2, and you can then look at all the tests that are valid for that. Now, test means that the tester or the multifunction tester is able to perform an electrical test. There are other tests which are purely visual, and we can talk about that in another session. But what we do then is look at what is available, and you can see that all of those are available. Now, we can test it, we can put results in two ways, depending upon what your actual requirements are. So the first part is if you wish to do all the tests within this circuit, then what we do is just click on that circuit, press the function key to then bring up what we want to do. So for instance, now we want to measure insulation resistance. Click on that, support that, start the test. And you have to wait until it gets a result. So now we've got a result at 0.1 or greater than 500 mega ohms. The limit is 1 mega ohm. So what we're doing then is saving that, okay? And we go into the quick save project. We have to define where we want to save it. So we save the distribution board. We then go to the circuit, and then we go to the test point, and we'll call that test point 2 because we've got a reading for test point 1. Just create that, and we can then cursor down via using the rotary dial and press save. So now what we want to do is that has saved it. We want to now confirm that it has saved it. So go into form, go again into circuit, into test point, and you can see now that the result has been saved within the appropriate place. Another method that will come up is if you want to do multiple tests of the same function. In other words, you want to create different RCD tests. The key factor is that the test points for those different RCDs must be defined. You can't just keep on overwriting, it will create an error. So do an RCD function continually and make sure you adjust that. So what we will do is, sorry about the noise, it will be a little bit noisy. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go to the functions. Now that's saying that there's a high voltage on the unit itself. So we go to RCD, okay, and we go to trip time. And what we'll do is then set up the correct sequence. In this case, we've done an AC breaker, 30 milliamps tripping current, 0 phase times 1. So what we'll do is we go start, and you can hear the click. So that's now created the test. The unit has accepted that. Then we go to save, right? And we're doing the same quick project save. And it's important that we go down to the test point level at this point. So in this way, we can actually put 2 quick tests in both GPIOs. We just add that test point, go to save, press enter, and the unit has now saved. We can confirm that, again, using the test points, creating the test point structure, sliding it over to make sure it has actually created a RCD trip time, and you can see that there. So it's created that point. Now, I want to do the same test, the same RCD test, but on a different breaker. So what we'll do is, for expediency, we'll use the same breaker. So we repeat that function again, same RCD time. Press the test button again to do the test. And we can see that it has passed, and you always have to make sure that you get a result. That's the critical issue. So we then press save. Again, quick project, establishing that, establishing that, establishing that. But at this time we're going to number 2, save. It's then saved it, go to the form. Again, go to the circuit, and you can see now that the circuit has now 2 parts in there. So what you're doing is you're continually updating the circuit and saving it to the correct name. And when you transfer that into TrueTest, it will come across as those names. I mentioned earlier that the unit has to go into a correct allocation. If that doesn't occur, whether you haven't defined the correct allocation, whether you haven't defined a test, whether you haven't defined, or you're trying to overwrite a test, the unit will do a sequence of things. It will recognize that the test is not valid for where you want to measure it. It will then clear the memory. That's a very deliberate step. It'll clear the memory and then ask you to restart the test. Depending upon the severity of that clearing of memory, it may actually go blank momentarily and then come back. Thank you for watching.